What's up, Eric? How's it going?
Hey, Darby.
Hello.
It's good to be with you.
Thanks for hanging out. We're
Yeah.
talking about, actually, I really want to talk about an important topic. Are you up for that?
I think so.
Okay. I really want to talk about what it looks like to handle emotions in the heat of the moment,
Right.
when you're in the middle of it.
Right.
Have you ever had like a meltdown? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have young kids that are
Oh.
not in the meltdown phase as much anymore,
Nice.
but I've had several of those happen in terrible spots.
In public, I'm
yeah,
sure.
The airplane's the worst. Like,
Oh,
I don't know if you've been
yikes.
stuck on an airplane with a kid melting down, but I have, and they've been mine,
Ah.
and it's really embarrassing. But yeah, no, for me too. I mean,
You're so brave.
I think everybody kind of has those moments where you're like, I didn't know where that came
Right.
from, and for me, a lot of times, it can be around things like, hey, even if my sleep is disrupted,
Yeah.
or even silly things like if the internet goes out at the house, it's like it shouldn't be that big of a deal, and yet it's funny how those different times like something can bubble up, and I actually bubble up is the word that comes to mind because I can actually feel it inside
Right.
me. That's like, okay, something's kind of erupting out that I didn't expect.
Sometimes out of nowhere,
Yeah.
you just don't even
Yeah.
feel it coming. So it seems like Jesus probably has something to say about that, right? Jesus is a pretty wise guy. He kind of knows what's up. What does Jesus have to say about emotions and feelings and how to handle it? Because I feel like in my head, I think emotions are bad, feelings are bad. I don't think
Yeah.
that's really what Jesus would say. So talk to us about that. What does Jesus have to say about handling emotions in the heat of the moment?
Yeah, and that's an interesting concept even about that idea that, hey, sometimes we do feel like, okay, emotions are bad, or I just need to be in control all the time. I
Right.
got to stuff it down as best as I can. And yet, Jesus was somebody that, I mean, it's fascinating when you think about, I believe Jesus is both fully God and fully man. And so the fully God side of it, you're like, okay, he's going to be, above everything, super calm all the time. And yet he was somebody that was fully human as well. So he experienced all different types of emotions. He cried, he got angry, he had moments of joy, moments of fear. And so I think that that's helpful for me to know that, okay, Jesus isn't calling any of us to be detached from our emotions. But I think what he spent his time talking a lot about was that what he cared about was the heart. Like he would always drive deeper into, okay, what is going on inside a person? Like even the whole Sermon on the Mount is really a reorganization around what spirituality is.
That's cool.
While a lot of times spirituality for religious people was about external actions and behaviors, Jesus would kind of surprise people and say, you know what, your issues are way deeper than what is going on the outside, that there's really a heart issue that's going on the inside. So constantly throughout his ministry, he's redirecting the people that were listening, redirecting us as well to say, okay, you need to look deeper in your heart, particularly if something erupts out. There's probably something within you that you need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, that's good. And speaking of the heart, there's a verse that I feel like you'll have some wisdom on. Can I read you a verse right now with
Okay,
my
sure.
big purple
Yeah.
Bible?
Yeah, I like
Okay, Proverbs. So this is from Proverbs 4:23, and it says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." There's a lot of like pieces to that I think are really interesting, but I bet you have some insight on that. What does that verse mean, and what can we learn from it?
Yeah, so when we hear that verse, at least when I grew up hearing that verse, a lot of times you read guard your heart. It's almost like, okay, my biggest job is just to keep things that are bad from coming inside the heart, which there's some wisdom and truth in that. But the original language of guard is a lot richer than that. It kind of was a word that was used, say you're like a prison guard that's watching over a prisoner, that you're kind of keeping track, like really close watch on it. Or, I mean, there's other times where that word was used where it was kind of watching over a treasure even. And so the word is much more about having a lot of careful due diligence, like watching over and looking after it with such intensity that because you know that what you're watching is incredibly valuable. And that verse gives the reason why. It says, okay, because out of your heart, which our heart in this context is the core, kind of the command center of who we are, our thoughts, our feelings, the stuff that kind of drives us, that's the thing that we need to keep careful watch over because it's so valuable. And it's the source of so much of our life, that that image of it's the overflow, or out of it springs out our actions and other things out of it. So that verse is powerful for me. It's saying that, hey, when something is coming out of me, maybe something that I didn't expect to come out of me, or even something that I would say, hey, that's kind of out of character, that instead of dismissing it right away, I should probably listen to it because it's telling me something that's going on inside my heart.
That's so good. It's tricky because I'm thinking for me, it's when those moments happen, it's much easier to just say, oh, I'm exhausted, or like, that's not me, it's not who I am, like they're the problem if it's a person or whatever it's causing that. And it's a lot harder to go deeper than that and to actually think a little bit deeper. It's a lot easier just to keep it surface level and to not deal with whatever the actual problem is. Do you resonate with that? Am I the only person who feels that way?
No,
what would you say to that?
Yeah, you are the only person that
Just
feels
me?
that way. So
Awesome.
sorry about that. No, yeah, it's because it's painful.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like if it's a noisy neighbor or an annoying situation at work, or maybe we're just tired or whatever, I mean, having an external factor be the blame for our behavior is a lot easier. And honestly, there's some truth in it. Like sometimes your neighbor is annoying,
right?
You know, like that's sometimes
true.
Yeah, I'm not speaking. And sometimes the factors that are outside are affecting us, so we don't want to like say, oh, that doesn't matter. But I think the reason why it's hard for me is that when you actually dive in deeper, it's just painful because you realize. Someone once said, I don't remember who it was, but they said that the one common denominator of all of your life's issues are you. Or I'm saying like you.
Me.
Like, I'm saying me.
Me personally.
Like, my issues, like if I look through different meltdown moments, like it's easy to blame lots of external things, but when you actually dive in and say, okay, what's the common thread that connects all this? It's me, but it also means, okay, there's some things that are probably going on in my heart that are painful, but I need to dive into those if I'm going to move forward well.
Yeah, absolutely, and learn from it and like move forward in a way that feels good. That's super helpful. Thanks for that, Eric. I'm excited about the rest of these conversations that we're having throughout. We're in a series right now, actually, at Chase Oaks, all about this. So I'm excited to learn more. Can you give us a little insider information about what's to come?
I'm excited. This is going to be an amazing series. So we have different. So this. We have kind of an intro week, but in a lot of the other weeks, each speaker is going to talk about one of those emotions that tends to maybe be deep down inside us and potentially drive us more than we would care to admit.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So things like fear or anger or worry or envy or jealousy, like those are some things. So each of our speakers is going to take one of those and help us do a deep dive on it. So like coming up soon, we're going to have April Farmer, who a lot of people remember her. She spoke on Mother's Day. She's amazing. But on top of her being amazing and an incredible speaker, she actually is a therapist as well.
That's
one of her many talents. So
brilliant.
If people come, they'll have an opportunity to hear from a therapist that will give us a good angle on one of those emotions that we're expecting. Our campus pastors will be speaking. Ryan Leake will be coming back. Ashlyn Stanley, who's one of our most amazing young communicators, is going to be speaking as well. So each week, they all relate, but they also they stand alone in the sense where we're going to take an emotion and kind of say, okay, how do I, particularly if I'm being driven by this emotion, or if I find it in my heart a little bit more than I would care to admit, how do I handle that in a healthy way?
I love that. It sounds like a really good series to come to invite people to. It'll be amazing speakers. It'll be a really great experience. So I'm really excited about it. Thanks for kicking it off for us, Eric.
Absolutely.